Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for today's session, which is how can airports support airline sustainability? We are here to discuss basically how airports not only facilitate movement of passengers, materials, but also contribute to the local economy, whether growth, creating job opportunities. We're also looking at the sustainability agenda for airports and how they support airlines in contributing to that, whether we're discussing about the climate change, whether we're discussing about airports' contribution to the sustainable development goals, the local visions within their countries of operation, whether how they contribute to communities. We would like to understand more through discussing with our panelists, who are basically subject matter experts joining us from different corners of the world to discuss how airports can prioritize sustainability at the core of their business strategy. How can they also support airlines with the necessary infrastructure to carry out their operations, not just efficiently, but also contribute to different measures of sustainability, whether we're talking about the environmental performance, social performance, or socioeconomic topics. We're also trying to understand how they can work together hand in hand towards contributing to the sustainability visions through the work with the airports and airlines. Today, I am joined with panelists who are basically allocated in different parts of the world. We have Lakshminarayanan Sankaran, who is a Vice President Engineering and Maintenance from Bengaluru International Airport Limited. We have Sohail Ali, who is an independent industry expert for a leading UK airline. We also have Hana, who is a sustainability and planning manager for Edmonton International Airport. So I'll provide an opportunity for the panelists to provide more introduction to who they are and how they're contributing to their different work streams. I'll hand over first to Lakshminarayanan.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm privileged to be part of this panel. My name is Lakshminarayanan. I'm heading the engineering and maintenance function at Bengaluru International Airport, India. We are a 33 million airport last year, and we are growing fast.
Thank you, Lakshman. I'll hand over to Sohail.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Lakshminarayanan said, it's a pleasure to be here amongst such experts, and hopefully I'm able to contribute a bit to it, and more importantly, learn a bit as well, because sustainability is becoming a core element of choice for customers, and really about the dependency of this aviation industry. So hopefully I can bring a bit of operational background. I've been 15 years in the operation for a large UK carrier, currently based in the Middle East, looking after approximately 36 airports. So hopefully we can bring a bit more international flavor to the conversation, because sustainability is a global challenge and everyone's on a different journey. And I think hopefully hearing from everyone else and hopefully contributing towards that, we can come up with some guidance for those that are listening, and also learn a few things that we can take back into our own operations. So thank you very much for having me. I look forward to contributing.
That's great. Thank you, Sohail. Handing over to Hana.
Hey, it's great to meet all of you, and thank you again for the invitation and this opportunity to learn from the group. This is a hello from Canada, and I'm the manager of sustainability and planning at Edmonton International Airport. So I work on 5-year strategic planning, 25-year master infrastructure planning, as well as the sustainability program and the different elements like energy, emissions, and people issues, community support, and that type of thing. So I'm looking forward to the conversation, and thank you for having me here.
Thank you, Hana. So to start off, a very broad question. How can we put sustainability at the core of the airport's business strategy? I would like to hand this over to Lakshman, just to get an idea from your work and your current operations. How do you see that being allocated as part of the business strategy? What are the key, let's say, challenges that you've been facing, and what are the key drivers that have resulted to the successful allocation of sustainability within your airport's business strategy?
Thank you, Mason, for the question. I think that question is much longer than my answer going to be. See, fundamentally, if you look at the sustainability part of that, it's not only the environment sustainability which matters. For any airport to keep sustainable in its focus, you need to have economic sustainability, environment sustainability, as well as social sustainability. Without business, you have nothing to do that. When you are taking care of the environment, probably, for example, our airport, Bangalore International Airport, is a greenfield airport, taken out of the green fields from people. So naturally, we are looking at the social sustainability, which is the community surrounding us. With keeping that in mind, we had our mission that we should be a role model for sustainable growth till 2018. In 2018, Bangalore Airport, we have changed our vision statement to, pay attention to this, enabling journeys, creating experiences, and touching lives as the gateway to a new India is our new vision statement. If you look at it here, we are talking about touching lives. So to keep that in mind, we have taken a mission statement, which is called community building and sustainability. So now, when it comes to the sustainability, initially we targeted our sustainability goals towards the environment is, we would like to be an energy neutral airport by end of 2020 financial year. We would like to be water positive by 2020. And also we would like to send zero waste to landfilling by 2021. Of course, these all are very tall order goals, but we are passionate on these goals. And even with the current pandemic scenario, where our current traffic is less, in fact, it is around 1/4 of what we used to handle earlier. In this year, our forecast is going to be around 8 to 9 million, whereas we handled 33 million last year. The management is very keen, and then still we are continuing with all these focuses, and some of these things are near dreams. I'll be explaining in due course as it is progressing. We are at around 98% with renewable energy power. Also, our airport is in airport carbon accreditation level 3+. So, sustainability definitely kept in the core of our business while we are growing.
Great, thank you, Lakshman. Hana, I'd like to get your thoughts on this as well.
Great, thanks. And thank you for this question. I think sustainability has been an important message within aviation space from its early years. If we think about the Chicago Convention from the 1940s, it's all about that collaboration and building partnerships, building friendships, and understanding around the world. So I see that as, at its core, a sustainability message. From Edmonton's perspective, so Edmonton International Airport is an airport in the cold Canadian prairies, and main industry being oil and gas and agriculture. And so with that in mind, because we always need to consider the context of from where we're speaking and what's unique to our specific needs, we come to this with many years of a sustainability journey. And I would say we'd have 4 main lessons on what it meant for us and how we got to this point. So first point is its executive leadership and vision. So it's setting that direction, but then also bringing the whole company along on that journey. So that's setting targets, making decisions like green infrastructure building, following LEED Gold for our terminal, setting corporate targets, as was said, as well as selecting corporate values and mission statements that reflect that commitment to sustainability, like economic prosperity, like a dedication to sustainability. Second item is talking to your partners. So talk to your airports, talk to your airlines, talk to your local community. I think we all know that sustainability can mean so many things and has the potential for so much positive benefit. And it's really important to understand in your own context what's important and what's valuable, and then responding in that space. Third item is, I think we all think about this, is you value what you measure and you measure what you value. So track, measure, and be clear on your definitions and your historical reporting. And then there's also Number 4 is creating the clear sustainability story, and that communication piece, joining in conferences, but also talking to employees and talking to your local community. It's really important to look back at your history before you even called it sustainability. What did your company do to get better? And how did it create that vision to continue getting better? So now as we look to the longevity and recovery through sustainability principles, how can we continue to work together? And for us, one of the ways we're doing that is in our 25-year infrastructure master plan. Climate change forecasts, climate change responses are going to be a core within that space. So I think in all of this, it's when you know your business and your business needs, you put yourself in a good position to work with partners like airlines, because you understand what's important to you, you can communicate it, and you can connect on the right things and make real change. So.
Sounds great. Thank you, Hana. I'd like to go with more of trying to understand, especially with the current state scenario with COVID-19. There have been a lot of challenges that have been faced by the aviation sector, whether through reducing the number of flights, putting certain planes on pending mode. We'd like to understand more, what are the current challenging sustainability issues currently faced in the current scenario? And what are the opportunities? Because it is a time for the aviation sector to start reflecting back on its performance and then restarting again or rewiring those plans on the future to start to contribute to parts of these agendas that have already been discussed by Lakshmin and Hana. I'd like to give this question to Sohail to understand more from your perspective.
Thank you, Maysam. Look, I think it's a very valid point and it's very poignant. You know, we are talking about sustainability, and I think a lot of people think about sustainability as in the future. And I think, you know, there were great strides being made by both airports and airlines and ground handlers, all, you know, the ecosystem in the aviation sector to try and take on the role of being more sustainable. Unfortunately, this pandemic has really hit us hard, you know, and what that can do, it has a danger of, you know, right now, airlines are talking about survival, you know, so trying to talk about, you know, our plans and our vision, which is rightly so, as Hana and Lakshminarayanan said, you know, we have to have direction. But at the same time, sometimes it can be hard to see through what's going on right now to understand how do we achieve those goals. So I think, you know, I can certainly say from my own experience currently going through this, you know, we know IATA telling us that, you know, forecasts are that we won't return to the levels of flying of 2019 until, you know, early 2024, possibly late 2023. So that tells us already, you could almost see that as being, you know, 4 years behind where we should be as an aviation industry. But having said that, like you said, Maysam, this presents an opportunity. You know, we probably not the luxury we would have wanted as airlines, and I'm sure as airports, to have that time to think about this. But, you know, we have to look for the positive in these things. And I think having had the opportunity to sit back and understand, yes, it's about cost control, because the more you can obviously control that cost, the more you can stand back and start to think, where can we invest? So, you know, like I said earlier, there were great strides being made by airlines. I know Qantas, for example, put out their vision for 2050, wanting to go net neutral on carbon emissions. I know IAG put out a 50% reduction on carbon emissions by 2050. And going back to a very clear point, both Hana and Lakshminarayanan are saying, it's about setting that direction. You know, many of us could have been disappointed with the Paris Agreement. Did it go far enough? Did it not? But actually, you know, we're having that conversation. This is what we have to do as industry experts and industry leaders to understand that conversation is happening. And now what do we do in response to that? So it's great to see airlines, both airports, you know, putting this at the core of their vision, what this is about. And most importantly now, you know, understanding the challenge. So yes, aircraft have been empty, probably doesn't feel great from a revenue perspective, but more importantly, we're flying around less people. Therefore, the cost, the sustainability cost of doing that is insurmountable. And this means we need to collaborate, because if you look at for example, slot coordination is almost anti-sustainability, because it's making sure, it's telling airlines you need to fly 80% of your routes regardless whether you have customers or not. And we've got to move away from that. We've got to move away from this piece, and airlines will obviously react to that, because they want to protect those lucrative slots, those lucrative timings, the choice that customers want. They want to arrive in early, or they want to arrive with minimum connecting times. So things like this we have to address together. And I think all of these panels, etc., we all talk about collaboration. And I'm going to be honest, as an airline, we talk about, I'm gonna mention one of my mentors, a lighter note, who's now a group CEO at AirAsia, and he won't mind me stealing his line. But I think that the essence of what we're talking about today is, aviation's about cost protection, right? You've got to reduce those costs if you're going to make your business sustainable. But actually, and we almost say cost is king, yeah, and we've all heard that. But actually, what I heard from him, and which has stayed with me and actually reset my own thinking, and hopefully those that are listening might be able to, take that on board as well, is that if cost is king, collaboration is queen. We really need to talk to each other. There are great strides being made by airports, very ambitious, and actually they're delivering. And therefore, we need to learn from each other, not look at it as a competitive advantage. Sustainability is not about being competitive. It's about making sure the aviation industry strives and it thrives, most importantly, because customers now have more choice. This is becoming an important brand differentiator. Is my airline that I am flying with, yes, it's about price, being competitive, but are they making a contribution to society? Are they making this world a better place? And that goes whether it's carbon emissions, whether it's investment in the countries that they are flying to. All of these come about. So yeah, look, we've taken a few steps back because of COVID-19, but I also think we have that opportunity to collaborate. And I would urge anyone listening to this, it's let's talk. Let's have those collaborative meetings as we are today. Let's learn from each other, because no one person has the answer to this. And hopefully we can learn from some of the things we're hearing. We're seeing, investment in solar panels, for example, at airports. It's a great initiative, but it costs a lot of money. And a concern as an airline will be, how am I going to pay for that? But how can we do it in a different way? There are mechanisms where customers want to offset their own carbon emissions. Do all airlines sign up to in providing that opportunity? Do we ensure that we are highlighting all the great work that aviation is doing in the countries that it does operate to? They are providing jobs, economic stability. They're also providing social stability. And right now, it doesn't seem like it, because we've lost a lot of people. We've lost a lot of people because of this pandemic, and we have very small schedules to operate within. So trying to get investment, I'm sure Hana, Lakshminarayanan are at those board meetings convincing this is the right thing to do, because I think we've all answered that question. This is absolutely the right thing to do. But it's about making sure we don't lose focus, and we can ensure that we are meeting those goals and direction that we're setting for each other. So yeah, look, it's definitely a challenge right now, and it would be remiss of us to ignore the impact of COVID-19, but it's also about that silver lining of the opportunities. With less flying, we are seeing a byproduct of lower carbon emissions. However, now we've had the time, how do we make sure that we use this time effectively, and that when we do restart properly as an industry, that we restart on the front foot and with sustainability at the core of everything we're doing?
Yeah, very valid points, Sohail. Thank you for your contribution. I think it's very key, as you mentioned, is to not just look at sustainable solution at the expense of cost, but also finding that right balance in between. And now is a very critical time for the aviation sector to look into that, as you mentioned, purposeful spending. And I really like the term you mentioned, that collaboration is queen. That's a really interesting one. And I'd like to bring back that question to Lakshman, especially that we already discussed about discussing collaboration between airports and airlines. So I'd like to get your views, Lakshman, on how can airports, what can they do, or what tools can they set in place to encourage sustainable behaviors across the airfield, and to encourage or drive that collaboration that has been really emphasized a lot by Hana and Sohail.
Very interesting, Mr. Sohail. That's a very nicely articulated statement, and I particularly appreciate that you call collaboration as queen. Now, let's take like this from the airport perspective and airline perspective. I mean, as he rightly mentioned, one lives with the other. It's, I mean, very mutual. So to that effect, when the infrastructure is developed in the airport, how we are calculating how we can minimize the benefits passed on both the airlines and the airport. So when the runway is constructed, when the taxiways are constructed, we construct RETs in such a way in collaboration with the airlines, which RET is going to benefit more. If I have port C, aircrafts more, if I have port D aircrafts more, to benefit this, which is the right location for the RET. As people in the know will be knowing that the rapid exit taxiways help the airlines or the aircraft to vacate faster from the runway, reaching the contact base as quick as possible. In the meantime, even if it is a 30 seconds or if it is a minute of savings, that much fuel is being saved by the airlines. The airport is getting benefited because the aircraft is vacating the runway by few seconds less, and then you can accommodate more aircraft. This is from a runway perspective. Now let us come to the stand. We try to give contact stands as much as possible. If you have passenger boarding bridges and then the aircrafts are connected to that, you are reducing the very valuable ground movement which is taken through the buses, etc. Now, that has got two contributions. One, the buses running across the terminal, across various parts of the gates is going to be a safety hazard, number one thing. Number two, they are going to burn fossil fuel, and it is going to increase the emission component at the airport. So when they are coming to the contact stand, all these things are avoided. But at the same time, can the airport afford to have contact stand for every aircraft which is coming to the airport? Difficult, because if I have to accommodate all the aircrafts coming to the stand, the terminal building size will be much bigger. That will add to a lot of energy efficient or energy inefficiency in the terminal. We'll be spending too much of air conditioning. So there is a fine balance we have to make between this. The third part is when it is coming to the contact stand, some of the airports or many of the airports in India, we do not have that ground power unit and then PCA available, where the airlines has to depend on the ground handlers, and they will be bringing diesel operated equipment. Now the trend is changing. Even in India, in Bengaluru, we are planning when our Terminal 2 is coming up, all the contact stands will have GPU and PCA attached to the passenger boarding bridge, and that saves lots of fuel for the airlines, as well as it is a great boon for the airport emission factor reduction. That is on that side. Now coming to the technology front, we are introducing this self-boarding points. The self-boarding points reduces a lot of time, and then the operational efficiency of the airlines as well as the airport is increasing. It reduces the crowd. We talk about airport and airlines. The third factor where we can collaborate, both of us have to, many of the airports in India, we don't have a direct metro connectivity to the airport. The ground transport is largely depending on taxis, and in some cases, the buses. So we are working with the local government where we can get the metro to our airport, and the Terminal T2 is opening. We are also constructing metro stations within the airport, and we presume that the government also started the actions. By 2025-26, we will have metro running for Bengaluru airport because it's a long distance. These all are some of in the air side. There are certain initiatives taken in the energy front. For example, Bengaluru airport, we started installing on-site solar plants. That's something like 7 megawatt solar plant is on site, which is producing around 10 million units. Off-site, we have 60 million units contracted through renewable power, which means that 70 million units of power of the airport is from the renewable energy. This has got reducing the requirement of conventional energy. Now, not only that, while it is making a lot of environmental sense, it makes us economic sense also, because the price of the renewable power in India is currently cheaper than the conventional power. So what we have done, while 70 million units gives us something close to 150 million Indian rupees in the OPEX reduction, this is shared among all the concessionaires, the airlines, the ground handlers, the cargo people. With everybody, it is shared. In the sense, we have averaged our charges, which is now coming to 2 rupees lesser than what it used to cost earlier, and that is passed on to them. There are many more initiatives related to water, waste, and then our lead in the terminal building, etc. If time permits, if there are some more questions, I'll be answering through that.
That's great, Lakshman. Thank you a lot. You've discussed a lot of valid points when it comes to energy consumption and introducing energy efficiency or renewable energy measures within the airports through collaboration with airlines and governmental entities. So that's very key towards the contribution towards your sustainability goals or strategy. I'd like to pass this on to Hana as well, just to get a better idea about the significant energy development projects at Edmonton International Airport.
Great, thanks so much. And thank you for all that information about the work that's happening at your airport. It's always interesting to hear, the different approaches. For us, energy, actually 2020 has been a milestone year in our energy and emissions work. Even through COVID, the decision was made to continue with those commitments, similar to what Sohail mentioned. It's about that long-term commitment and making that decision that the recovery will have those sustainability elements. So in 2020, we both were able to announce our new solar farm that would be coming onto site. And that will be one of the largest airport solar farms in the world. So that's quite exciting for us. And then also we had the construction and implementation of our cogeneration facility, providing both heat and electricity on the facility, so self-producing that energy for the terminal. So these are exciting developments in 2020, but it represents many years of work and collaboration to come to that point. And so for us, there were a number of major developments in the past 10 years, but it was 5 years ago where the executive team decided to set a clear energy target for the business on scope 1 and 2. And with that, you could unite the whole company around, okay, well, this is what we want to achieve. This is why. It's of global importance. It's of global value. And it's also something that the entire aviation industry has committed to. So we need to play a part. And then so with that, we started to learn more about the business. We started to study different pieces of the terminal. Where is the energy being used? How is our facility working? How are our vehicles functioning? And then also scope 3, just to understand what are our partners doing on site? What's happening with airlines and various businesses on the property? And with that continued assessment, it's also that recognition. It's not just about the technology and the brick and mortar facility. It's about people and processes. So do you have the training in place? Do people understand why the changes need to take place? But also are your processes able to enable these new forms of working? And so with all that assessment, we came to the development of a major energy management program for our future. And that creates with that, we created like a suite of different options for how the company can continue to move forward, recognizing that each item comes with a different cost, different challenges, but also different opportunities for collaboration. So what's exciting, and an exciting piece of the story, is that within a 20-year time frame, we were able to reduce the energy intensity of our building by 50%. And that's actually very significant within almost any industry or any facility management. And as we look to the future with our partnerships, with our increased knowledge of what's important, we're looking at emissions and reducing our emissions by over 20% in just the next few years. So again, I think that this connects into that, what I like to hear also from the other speakers. It's about partnerships, and it's about understanding what's important in your space.
That's great. Thank you, Hana. I'd like to understand more from Sohail. I mean, we've discussed a lot of very interesting initiatives, whether in Bengaluru or Edmonton Airport, where we're discussing renewable energy, introduction of renewable energy, and other LEED certification, as Hana mentioned earlier. I'd like to understand from an airline's perspective through Sohail, what do you think also can be adopted as sustainability? Like, first of all, what are the sustainability challenges faced, and what are sustainability initiatives that are currently being adopted from an airline's perspective?
Yeah, sure, Maysam. I'll start with the initiative that Lakshminarayanan has talked about. You know, the fact that, you know, we are trying to reduce as much fuel burn on the ground as possible, and the challenge of ground power units and APU and preconditioned air is one that faces all airlines. You know, we have tight turns. We want to keep those aircraft cool for our customers to make sure they have a pleasant experience, but they come with ramifications. You know, they come with high emissions, and they also come at high cost. So how do you work with that? And it's great to hear what BIAL has been doing about actually one of the ways you invest in airports. So, you know, having looked after India in one of my previous roles is, you know, I would have loved to have heard that the cost of doing all this, you know, the implementation obviously is an upfront cost that BIAL will have to absorb, but actually they're taking a longer term view. And ultimately what they're demonstrating to airlines and ground handlers is actually this is a cost reduction for you. And it also nets out as a positive in terms of the emissions outlet. So, you know, that's always a challenge. You know, I know many of the UK airlines have been looking at this. So there's a longer term piece around, you know, biofuels, which we shouldn't forget. And that shouldn't go away. That work needs to continue, and it's great to see some of the existing fuel providers also buying into that. And I mentioned places like you know, Etihad with the Innovation Hub, or you think about Hangar 51 with IAG. They're encouraging you know, innovators, entrepreneurs who have these ideas, and to help support them to build the ecosystem, as I said before. And I think, Hana, you mentioned really well about the people. You know, because ultimately, you know, we can all kind of talk about on this panel about how solar panels will reduce, biofuels will reduce emissions. But if your people are not acting in that way, if the people that are handling my operation are not thinking, is this a sustainable way of undertaking my activities, then we're not going to get anywhere, because we're only going to realize, you know, less than 50% of the potential of all of these technologies. And we'll be sitting here, you know, I like to think in 30 years, but sadly disappointed that we haven't achieved the goals that we set out to do, because we didn't bring the people along with us, and we didn't bring the processes along with us. So yeah, look, going back to for example, the example that was given by BIAL Airport, it's about finding that balance. And I'll give you a great example, which I'll commend Gatwick Airport on. You know, one of the things they did is, you know, again, airports are a large airfield. You know, they take up a lot of space. You know, and as BIAL mentioning, you know, they've taken up a green area, which isn't always popular with the local people. But it's about balancing, you know, by making that investment, what you can do to give back to that community, what you can give back economically, not only in terms of connectivity, because ultimately we're in this industry because we are connecting people. You know, it goes back to that. That's what we're here to do. And it's important that we do it in a sustainable way, and sustainability, not in terms of just carbon emission, but making sure there is a longevity in the business, and that people desire to continue to travel by air, you know, and it's about providing those alternatives. But yeah, what Gatwick Airport did is one example, which, you know, I was really privileged to be a part of, is they work with the ground handlers and the airlines to reduce the space being used at the airport. Now, you may argue Gatwick is one of the busiest single runway airports in the world. So, you know, space is a premium for them anyway. So a byproduct is sustainability. But one of the things we did with them is we worked towards common handling. You know, rather than 3 handlers all buying the same PCA equipment or all buying the same tug equipment, we worked on, you know, providing the airport absorbing that and saying, you know what, we're going to provide this equipment and we're going to rent it out to the handlers. Therefore, less of those vehicles on the airfield, but more importantly, they're able to reinvest and buy state-of-the-art equipment, which is fuel efficient and also taking less of the time to do that. So I think it's a great initiative, and I would encourage all airports to think like that, and even airlines, because I could think about, well, that means I can't get the equipment when I maybe want it. and maybe, you know, from a selfish point of view. But going back to, as I said, with this whole topic is about, it's beyond an airline, it's beyond an airport. It's about taking a step back and making sure we have a sustainable model that works. And, you know, if we can say we have, you know, 30% less equipment on the ground, that we requires 30% less of the fuel, that's only a good thing. And, you know, ultimately we bring the people along with that. You know, we change our processes with that. And hopefully that brings about more efficiency in that sense. So, yeah, look, there are challenges, as we keep saying. And, you know, airlines, you know, like airports will want to make revenue, and airlines will want to reduce the cost. So that's going to be an endless battle. Hence why we've got to collaborate. So, you know, we've all got to see the end picture here. And if that means in the short term, we need to take pain, it's about providing an ecosystem that works for the long term. Because no one rightly wants an industry that doesn't keep up with what's going on. And I go back to the people, and I go back to the customer, because that's what we're all here for. If the customers are demanding it, you know, we need to provide it. And if anything, we need to go one step ahead. We shouldn't be waiting for our customers to tell us, because that tells us as an industry, we're failing to collaborate. That says that we're not doing enough. So yeah, look, the challenges are there, but I don't think they can, you know, they're insurmountable. And I think, you know, if we keep talking and we keep learning, you know, and we keep hearing about these great stories of investment, and also making sure the end users are understanding the benefit as well. And ultimately, as airlines, you know, if we're seeing a reduction in cost, or a reduction in, or more importantly, an efficiency in process, an efficiency in the way we utilize our people, and an efficiency in how we use the airfield, that can only be a good thing for all of us.
Great, thank you, Sohail. I want to know more. I mean, we've discussed this briefly across your different operations, but what are the, let's say at the moment, what are the main roadblocks when it comes to implementing new innovative technology to improve operations and sustainability? So yes, I mean, we've discussed the cost as a driver, the buy-in, I mean, as Hana mentioned, from the senior management is something that, you know, you need to make sure you get that commitment beforehand before you move on with those ambitious plans. I want to know from Lakshman's perspective, are there any other main roadblocks that you've been facing, especially with the projects you've mentioned on energy efficiency, or even solar panels being introduced to your operations?
Thankfully, on the solar panels, we didn't have a roadblocks because we did our groundwork better. In the sense, when we have first installed the solar panels in the airfield, we approached the regulator, that is DGCA in India. We approached ATC. We did a 365-day glare study to prove them that there is no glare to the pilot, because the primary aim of the airport is to provide safer operation to the aircraft. So we took care of that. And then we approached the local electricity board. When we are going for a PPA and then going to private parties to develop solar fields outside, the local distribution company is not exactly going to be very happy, because we are giving good amount of cash back to them. But the government of Karnataka really supported well. They brought a very good solar policy, and that helped us to move very aggressively into the solar energy outside our campus. We are also having now, what happened, apart from energy, we are in a massive program for our rainwater harvesting. Currently, what happened, the municipal or the Bengaluru city supplies us close to 3 ml of water for potable purpose, and then another 1 to 1.5 ml for non-potable purpose. But then we thought that we have a large field, and then there is a large collection reservoir. This water is going outside to a lake. At the same time, we thought that we should have a water sustainability as well as the community should live. So what we have, I mean, now currently going is, initially we have done a lot of rainwater harvesting, I mean, the recharging pits. Currently, our Terminal 2 is under construction. When Terminal 2 is under construction, we are looking at that LEED Gold certification for that. And then there will be natural light, the roof will be capable of solar, there will be large green space. In fact, we are trying to call our terminal, it is not a garden in a terminal, but it's going to be a terminal inside a garden. That's our current this thing. And then we are working towards that. In probably in another 1 year, the terminal should be ready for operation. So with that, when it is happening, for the water, our water requirement is going to be increasing. So what we are currently doing is we are creating 4 large reservoirs. And one of the reservoir, what we are creating is like 1 kilometer in length, 150 meters wide, and then around 6 to 8 meters depth, and can hold close to 700 ml of water. Like this, we are doing 4 such ponds, which is going to give us around 1000 ml of water. And with this, we will be able to generate 5 ml water, which will be self-sufficient. Now, coming to the actual roadblock. There are, when you are using people technologies, there are a lot of digital technologies used in the airport. We want to be digitally well advanced airport. So there are a lot of face recognition, biometrics, etc., is being planned. We want the passenger journey to be as digital as possible. There are certain restrictions in terms of data uses happening, but we are discussing and then collaborating with all the people. There is another area where there could be a roadblock is, we were planning to use taxibot. Mr. Sohail would agree with me that they would have tried, or they may be using it in some of the airports. Taxi bots are going to be an expensive proposal. While the technology is good, the usage with a different kind of aircrafts, different kind of airlines is going to be difficult. These all are some of the challenges. And also with the cloud, so much getting digital, everybody's a little apprehensive about the cyber security. That's going to be the biggest threat going forward, I feel.
Yeah, that's a valid point. So I think, we've discussed many things, whether from the sustainability initiatives that are being adopted at the moment in your airports, whether we're talking about LEED certifications, whether we're talking about energy management systems, renewable energy introduction. Most recently, Lakshman has also discussed the water management of how to reduce water consumption through water capturing as well. I'm also interested to know if you have any last thoughts about either collaboration or roadblocks, and I just open it up to anyone else. Maybe Hana, would you like to take that across? You've mentioned as well partnerships and collaboration, but you've also mentioned a lot of very ambitious plans. So how do you see that going forward for the airports, and how can your airport be, let's say, a benchmark for other airports and taking over those initiatives?
Yeah, no, thank you. And yeah, there's a lot of different things to think about as we move forward. So maybe first I'll make a comment just about roadblocks and creating the right environment for change, because of course it is difficult bringing everybody or bringing the right people at the right time for either creating a product or bringing it from the idea to manufacturing, to sales and implementation. And then there's the people component of, I think, all humans who are all resistant to significant change, because there's the difficulty behind it. And we all want to know how we can play a part. And I think organizations are similar. And part of the way, in terms of your question on how can EIA, the Edmonton International Airport, play a role? Well, one of the ways that the airport has stepped forward on innovation and new technologies is creating the Alberta Aerospace and Technology Center, which is a collaboration point on our airport city, which is government and research centers, businesses, and ourselves, looking at what can we do to make the passenger experience better, what can we do for airlines, and then how can we use our airport facility and the businesses there to work together and create that change and create that collaboration on site. So maybe then an end point is just connecting that back to the Civil Aviation Chicago Convention, to now current times, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, Goal 17, creating partnerships. And, I think that's really a major message here. And it's about continuing to do the outreach and making decisions. And I really like the message of make sure you've got the same vision of where you're trying to go. So is that, yeah, sorry, I think you may have asked another question within that space, but yeah, so basically, yes, thank you so much. And it's great learning from everybody. And I look forward to continuing the conversation because there's so much to say and there's so many great stories and opportunities. So I look forward to further questions and outreach.
Thank you, Sarah. That covers it. I also want to give to Sohail. Is there any last words that you'd like to provide as part of concluding the discussions?
Sure, no, Maysam. But look, firstly, we're having the conversation, and that's really important. We need to keep that conversation going. We need to remain advocates. So, you know, I do thank you guys for pulling this together, and the audience that is listening to this. And it's about taking that away. And I guess one challenge that I gave myself, that I give to you and anyone that's listening, is take away one thing that you can do in your operation, in your organization, that can help move the sustainability push forward. You know, you briefly, you know, I think we went over the roadblocks, and I think, you know, one of the key ones is I would say stakeholder engagement, but also alignment, because again, we have, as airports, we have different goals. As airlines, we have different goals, but ultimately we're all trying to connect people. So we need to find a way to bring those different aspirations together that ultimately will provide, or hopefully as even as a byproduct, the sustainability goals we're trying to achieve. So it's great to see airlines and airports pushing forward in terms of their aspirations. We're talking about 2050 as a benchmark we're seeing. I guess what I would like to see, and what I would like to hope to see, is what we're hearing from our colleagues at the airports, is that more airports and more airlines sign up to this. So there may not be a convention as such, but maybe we can start one here, that everyone commits to some form of sustainability goal by 2050, whether it's small or large. But it goes back to what we started with here. We need to provide executive direction here. So if I believe my CEO, my shareholders, my customers, and my senior leaders are bought into this, then it goes back to the people on the ground. They are also bought into this. So it goes back to that's kind of my last point I would make on that, is that we need to make sure all of our stakeholders are aligned. And finally, that everyone listening to this and everyone as part of this, we take away, even if it's a small goal. You know, we've talked about plastic. You know, we almost feel like the plastic movement's moved on. Unfortunately, I think COVID has brought it back. You know, because we've gone down to, you know, single use because we've needed to, for the right reasons. But there has to be commitment to getting that back on track. How do we do that, and how do we move forward with that in the different environments we work in? Because, you know, some countries are more technically advanced, some countries are further forward on this journey than others, but that doesn't mean everyone can't take a step towards sustainability.
Thank you, Sohail. I'd like to give to Lakshman a few last key takeaways from this discussion. You've mentioned a lot of key points, whether it comes to the energy management, even the collaboration with the government. Anything else that you'd like to give across to other airports, let's say, that are still early on their sustainability journey?
I mean, Hana and Sohail very well, I mean, articulated that collaboration as well as alignment is equally important. And I would like to take in this journey the passengers also, because passengers are the integral part for the airlines as well as the airport. And a lot of education, interactive programs required between all these three communities to take this sustainability forward. I would like to just close with only one statement. Sustainability is not for posterity, but it is for the perpetuity of our generation as well as our future generation. So collaborate well, let everybody behave responsibly towards the sustainability. The future is ours.
Thank you, Lakshman. That's great. I'd like to thank you all. I mean, you've provided a lot of really interesting points, and you've contributed a lot of interesting best practices, whether from your airport or airlines, different subject matter, or let's say inputs. I think as a key summary towards the end of this discussion is that I kept hearing a lot of collaboration, a lot of getting the right people on board, whether coming up with a center of excellence to come up with different research and innovation on new ways that airports can adopt sustainability practices without impacting the bottom line, but actually contributing more purposeful to the environment and society. There was a lot of discussion on energy management. So we all understand that energy is a key topic. Airports are energy intensive, as well as airlines. They contribute to about 2% of the global airport, emissions from human-induced practices. So yes, that is a very key topic and a material topic, as well as all the other different topics that you've discussed, whether it's a matter of having to deal with the COVID-19 situation and having to adopt more plastic, despite even a lot of airports committing to stopping single-use plastic, but doing it for the right reasons of safeguarding people's health and well-being. So yes, I mean, there's a lot of interesting discussion points. And as we mentioned, just to summarize this in one key message, is that sustainability is a journey. It doesn't mean that you're either towards the end or early beginning. It's never too late to start. It's always a good way to look at other good practices adopted from international airports. And there's a lot of information available and new ways of looking at sustainability without, let's say, impacting or coming at the expense of costs. And getting the buy-in from the executive leader and senior management is key. So I'd like to thank you all again, and we have reached towards the end of our discussion.
Thank you, Maysam. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And thank you everyone for sharing. It's great meeting you.